This video is brought to you by Patreon provider Lars.
Well, hello and welcome. Courtesy of Patreon provider Lars, we have this wonderful little primary arms SLX MicroPrism to review today. Well, not really review, just unbox. If you're unfamiliar with my channel, I always do two videos, an unboxing to go over the general aesthetics and functionality of it, and then my full review. Some people think that my unboxings are my full reviews, and it's just not the case. Anyway, Lars was gracious enough to send this in because he bought one too many, and instead of sending in his primary arms for a full refund, he sent it over my way for a review. And he might not be getting this back. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. The box is fantastic. As you can see, it gives you everything you're going to need to know on the face and on the side. There's a lot that comes with this, and I wasn't really ready for that. I thought for the $270 that these come in at, you were just going to get a base, a single spacer, and the optic. Instead, you get a plethora of different spacers to really fine-tune this for your particular setup to the T. The rest of the box is, well, really nice. There's all of our specs. That 7 ounces is a bit of a lie, but we'll get on that in just a moment. Let's crack this thing up, open, not up, and see what we've got. We've got two owner's manuals. This one is for the reticle. This one's for the actual MicroPrism. It's basically as straightforward as you're going to get, but it would pay to actually go through these because you'll make a mistake that I made if you don't. However, I am much more interested in the Cyclops reticle. I love chevrons for whatever reason. I just think they're so cool and they're so functional. They're really easy to be able to get a good zero and holds at multiple different distances. To get what I'm saying, you have perfect illustration here from primary arms. Find out which one best resembles your setup and go from there. 5.56 with a 16-inch barrel, zero the tip at 100 yards. Then you'll have a 300-yard drop and a 400-yard drop. Perfect. The 400-yard drop being in this open cavity under the chevron, I feel is a pretty smart decision because if you're shooting it that far unmagnified, and I'll touch on that in a little bit, but if you're shooting it unmagnified, I'd rather see the splash around the target instead of trying to hold on, a very obtrusive area and not know exactly where I'm hitting whatsoever. But again, that's just me. There's your shotgun pattern for 25 yards, and here is how you use the ranging reticle. You have an 18-inch average center mass, and you go widthwise from 200 all the way down to 400, which is fantastic. A cleaning cloth. You have all of these different spacers, which are fantastically machined. You also have the screws for the spacers. So you have everything that you need, including this little Allen key to make some micro adjustments, but you have the big Torx driver to actually set all of these up. So this is a one-stop shop to get this thing set up for your gun 100% all the time. The box is fantastic. For the price, I am very happy to see the box quality that it has. Speaking of other little options, you have this little bikini cover that comes with it, which is fantastic. I love bikini covers. They're really light, not obtrusive, and when you're not using it, it goes in your bag or in the box, and you're left with this absolute little beauty. I will start at the bottom, where you will see that you have two nice cross bolts, as well as this little pocket for a single pick rail slot. Push forward, torque these down, you're good to go. There should be 3 screws here, but I mounted this with the spacer to do some footage behind a magnifier. Actually, no, it would be in front of a magnifier. And to answer your question, does this work in front of a magnifier? Yes, it does, within reason. But it works way better than I was expecting it to. I will run this with no spacer for my Ruger PCC, which is what I've been running this on, and it's been an absolute peach in my opinion. Though it does have some quirks, but we'll get on that during the full review. Anyway, let's start at the back at the fast focus eyepiece, which is perhaps one of the greatest features about running a prism like this, as opposed to something like this AEMS, or this 512. Because many of you out there might be wondering, why the hell would you run a 1x prism as opposed to a holographic sight or even a red dot sight? Whoop, whoop. Why would you do this? Well, if you have perfect vision and you don't have any problems with your eyes, it might not be very apparent to you. But if you have this thing called an astigmatism, where your axis of your eye is slightly shifted, you don't see red dots or holographic sites necessarily clearly, especially on like things like the Trijicon MRO. That's literally a starburst for everybody. With a prism, you don't have that problem because you have an etched reticle on glass and you have an adjustment for your eye to the reticle. It has a little bit of play, but where I've found this works out really well for me is mostly all the way in. So if you are running it fairly forward in, I can't speak today. You don't have to worry about this thing really hitting anything because when it's this far in, it's nice and tight. While we're on this side, we will take a look at the illumination control, which goes from 0, 1, 2, or actually 1, 2, and 3 are night vision, all the way up to 13. You do not have an off in between. So if you are running this, make sure that you shut this off, because if not, it will kill the battery fairly quickly. One thing I have to say that I've noticed so far is this battery compartment in use has actually loosened up on me. So if you do get one of these and run it, make sure you lock this up pretty tight. The cap has a very small O-ring, albeit at least it's there, and a smaller foam pad in the middle than what I'm used to. We do, however, have 6 nice claws that hold this battery in place, but we find a little spring on the inside, and the spring is pretty narrow, but it puts good pressure, but I don't know if good pressure is necessarily a good thing in this case, because I will say this, in my use, at least on a 9mm PCC, this thing has actually shut off on me a couple of times so far. I'd have to remove the battery cover, pull the battery, put it back in, and then it works. But still, it's been something that I haven't been too fond of. Another thing that I'm not too fond of is the lack of aggressive knurling or splining on the outside of this. It looks pretty decent, but my hand slips off of this very, very easily. You can see how much pressure I'm putting on under my thumbnail. This thing requires a lot of gusto to turn. And I've run this for about a week and a half, 2 weeks now, and it doesn't really feel like it's loosened up. So that's a bit of a draw, but it's not the end of the world. I had mentioned this earlier. It does pay to read the owner's manual because if you did, you would know that each one of these clicks on the elevation and windage turret, to which they sound phenomenal, nice, sharp, and crisp, but each click is 1 MOA at 100 yards. When I was zeroing this in at 50 yards, I would make an adjustment thinking it was quarter MOA, and I would move it from, here over a 4-inch span and wind up over here. I'm like, what the fuck happened? Well, I didn't read the owner's manual, nor did I look and read 1 click is 1 MOA. So I think it's a little bit too coarse, even for a 1X prism like this. I would like to see a half MOA, just because for me being me, I like that little extra added amount of precision. Nevertheless, this thing is pretty slick. It's got a really nice fit and finish to it, albeit, lack of splining on the illumination control, or the fact that it's just really hard to turn. But once it gets into position, you never have to worry about this thing coming loose. And the same thing with your windage and elevation. They're fantastic. I shot a couple hundred rounds of 9mm through this with no real issue, except with the illumination control. Oh well. The finish on this thing, I don't know what it is. It almost looks rubberized, but it feels really good. And I love the look of this thing. Size and weight, this comes in at 7 ounces, or at least so they claim. But as you'll see, with a single spacer in there, it bumps it up 0.2 of an ounce. If you want to compare this, though, to an Ames, there's no comparison. It's significantly lighter, or rather, the Ames is significantly lighter. Something like the Strike-Fire 2 is significantly heavier. So it finds itself right in the middle. So far, for the $270 that you're going to be shelling out for one of these, I think with all that it's given for you, I think that's pretty damn good. But that might not necessarily be the best part. Let me show you why.
If you've never gotten behind one of these before, you would be in for a treat once you get it set up just right for your eye and on your rifle. The illumination on this thing, though green, is still daytime bright. And it is daytime bright. It's more than sufficient at full during bright sunny days like this, and I've had no issues with it. Is the red going to be brighter? Probably. Would red be the first color for me to pick over the green? Yes, it would. But this is what Lars sent me. This is what Lars bought. And you know what? I have no problems with it. It is so far the brightest green illumination I've got my hands on. And it is sharp. It is crisp. It is clear. Just like the glass. Now you will see some distortion going over the power lines because it is a small magnified optic technically. Yes, it is a 1x, but no matter what, once you have lenses stacked on top of one another, you're going to have some sort of distortion. For the price that this thing comes in at, and so far the overall build quality, fit and finish, the feel, it's adequate. It's not that noticeable once you're behind it. You can easily train around it. The overall clarity on this thing, though, is what really sets it apart. And you could already see there's the problem with the illumination. It's actually gotten better. So I don't know if just the contacts inside were just a little dirty, or maybe I didn't have enough pressure on the battery compartment in the beginning, but it's fixed itself over the couple of weeks that I've had this, actually a couple months that I've had this. I'm a little delayed on this review, but it's so far been a non-issue since then. Spoilers, what the hell does it matter at this point? But it's fixed itself. You could see there, it just tweaked the battery. It's fine. More spoilers, though. I am adamant that this thing has so far been worth the price. It's been excellent to me so far. Again, albeit with a slight illumination issue. But if you're looking for a 1x or close to 1x that you're going to be using as a substitute for a holographic sight or a red dot sight on a rifle, a carbine like me, where you could be using it for home defense, you could be using it for really short, close engagements on medium to full-size targets, this thing has so far hit the bill to the T. But that's going to be it for this unboxing. Lars, thank you so much for sending this in for review. It's been an absolute peach. And thank you all very much for watching, as always. See you again next time. And a huge thank you to my Patreon providers. Without you, this truly wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to help support the channel but don't want to join my Patreon, I completely understand. But you can help by using the affiliate links in the description below. Thanks again for watching.